Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ask Matt Lloyd. So I'm here in Fiji on my island. You can see it back here in the background. Obviously all the buildings, I don't know how clearly you can see that, but that's what we're going to be renovating over the next 5 or 6 months. We're going to get started on the renovations in the next 2 weeks. So the sun's just coming up. I thought I would make an episode here. Today's question comes from Michelle, and Michelle has said, Matt, I'm doing quite well in my business. I'm making good money. At what point should I start taking money out of the business to start investing? This is a great question. You know, often when you get started with your business in the first initial stages, it's a real struggle and you need every bit of cash that the business can possibly generate. But after you get some momentum and sales start coming in, you start to hire people, you've got your advertising budget and everything's going along well, and you start to stockpile some cash. You start to have more cash coming in than the business requires at least at that moment. So at what point do you start to take some of that cash and start to invest it in different assets? Well, let me first answer this by telling you when I did that myself with the growth of Mobe, and then I'll try and give a broader answer. So ideally what you want to be doing is having at least 6 months of operational expenses, enough cash for that all in the bank. That's about where you want to be. Mobe started doing well as a company in late 2011, okay, because up until then, we weren't doing so well. Revenue was very unpredictable. But in late 2011, you've all heard the story before. That's when I had a $7,000 month, and then I had a $15,000 month. A couple months later, $45,000. And then in January 2012, over $80,000. And in 2012, I think, and this, if my memory serves me correctly, I don't think we had more than 2 months where we did less than $100,000. The average month in 2012 probably would have been about $175,000, probably around that $175,000. We finished that year doing $415,000 in December of 2012. So in December of 2012, that's when money started really coming in. And I can remember very clearly in 2012 having the very first $1 million cash balance in any bank account I'd ever had. I remember getting past $100,000, and I took a screenshot of that, and I printed that, and I put it on a cork dashboard right next to my desktop, because one of my mentors had told me he'd done the same thing. When he crossed $100,000 cash in a bank account, he'd taken a picture of it. But I can remember getting beyond $1 million, and I also remember 5 months after that point. Okay, I think that might have been towards the end of 2012 that I did that. But I can remember 5 months later, and I'm not too proud of this, but seeing that my cash balance, it was the exact same. So it was still this nice big number, but the number hadn't gone up in 5 months. And that's because my expenses were just out of control. And we were grossing good numbers, but we were not netting good numbers. That was just a lesson I needed to learn. But my point is, around this kind of time, I had enough cash to fund the growth of the business. So I started looking at, well, how do I put some of this money away? How do I protect it? That became my big focus. How do I protect all of this that I'm working very hard for? But also, how do I look at investing in other asset classes? Now, one of the first asset classes that I invested in personally was in bullion, okay, gold bullion. I started investing in gold, and I'd never bought gold before, but I started to learn about gold bullion, and I started to buy American Eagle 1 ounce gold bullion coins, the Australian kangaroo 1 ounce coins, and I started to use dollar cost averaging, where every month I would invest a reasonably fixed amount. It would go up and down a little bit, but I would invest a fixed amount in gold. And also, before that point, I had also started investing in index funds through a company called Vanguard. Okay, so I was investing in an index fund in Australia where they have the top 300 companies in Australia, and they spread your money across them all. And you can do this in many different countries. Of course, America, Vanguard's a massive investing index fund company. I think it's by far the biggest one out there. But I had started to invest in index funds where I would have a fixed amount going every single month. So to answer your question, you need to have enough cash in the bank where if something happened, for example, your merchant account shut down or your main source of advertising got cut off, you would have enough cash for 6 months to survive, to be able to pay your staff, to be able to pay your overheads or your software subscriptions, just whatever overheads you have, you would be covered. If you have your business at a stage where you only have enough cash in the bank to pay for the next 30 days and something goes wrong, then you're in trouble. And I've had cases like that happen to me. Even after we got to that point where we had over $1 million cash in a bank account, there were points where things went wrong. For example, merchant accounts got shut down, or we grew so fast in such a short amount of time that even though we were grossing a lot, we had a lot of money coming in, our expenses, our overheads were completely out of control and were way beyond what they needed to be. So I've had periods of time where the amount of cash we had available to support the business really got stretched. So I'm saying don't be too aggressive in taking money out of the business, especially in the early stages, and putting it in other investments. Or here's another way of looking at it. If you are going to do it, and you know you're kind of borderline, you know that there are some events that could come up that could stretch your business. For example, merchant accounts getting shut down, that's always a possibility. Then choose other investments that are relatively liquid, meaning that if you need to get the money out quickly, you can do it. So for example, this island here that I'm standing on right now, this is an example of an illiquid investment. If I wanted to get all the money out of this island that I put into it within 3 months, I couldn't do it unless I was willing to sell it for just a ridiculously low price and lose a lot of money. An island like this, I mean, this took me over 1 year to buy it, and the seller was trying to sell it, I think, for close to 2 years. So this is an illiquid investment. Whereas those index funds that I told you about before, if I wanted to sell and get my money out from the index fund, that can be done in a matter of a week. You know, that can be done quite quickly. I can decide to sell at any point and I can get my cash wired to me directly. Gold bullion. If I wanted to sell gold bullion, I could do that relatively quickly. I could find any gold bullion dealer, walk in with my gold and get paid relatively fast. So there are certain assets that are liquid. There's also certain assets that just are not liquid. And so I'm saying to you, if you do want to be a little bit more aggressive with taking money out of the business and investing in other assets, have a mixture of assets that are liquid and ones that are not, so that if everything goes wrong, then it's not going to starve your business of that essential cash. Okay? All right, so I hope that helps. Thanks for the question, and we'll see you tomorrow.